Hello, dear students. Today we are going to critically appreciate one of the poems written by John Keats, which is titled Ode to a Nightingale. Now, it is one of the various odes written by Keats, and all of his odes are masterpieces, be it Ode to Psyche, or Ode to the West Wind, or Ode to Nightingale. First, what is an ode? An ode is an address in poetry in the form of an address to somebody, any person, or any particular thing. So here, the address is to the nightingale. Keats is talking and addressing the nightingale, and the bond between Keats and nightingale is something which is very sublime and something which is very heavenly. And when we are talking about Keats's Nightingale, we must not forget Skylark of Shelley or the Skylark of Wordsworth. All these are romantic poets, and the way differently they have interpreted these birds actually, and have put their creative flow in penning down how they feel, particularly while listening to the song of these beautiful singing birds, is a study of its own. So it is very probing, and it has got very deep and philosophical meaning also. So we'll step by step, line by line, try to analyze it. But let's first start with who was Sir John Keats. About the poet. John Keats, 21st October 1795 to the 23rd of February 1821. You can see his short lifespan. There was a family history of tuberculosis in his life, and just before Keats composed this poetry, it was that his brother was suffering from tuberculosis and he had died. So you can see that there is a hint of nostalgia and a hint of, or a way of pining for death, which is prevalent or relevant in this poem also. Because at times he feels that drowsy numbness, or at times he wants to fade away with the nightingale. So there is a hint of pessimism, we can say, but not totally, because at the end of the poetry you will also find soaring new heights with the nightingale. Keats also flies high. So there are a number of meanings and layers of meanings to the poem. So we'll go into that later on. First, coming to the poet. Obviously, he is an English romantic poet, as we all know, and he is one of the second generation or the younger generation of the romantic poets, along with Byron and P.B. Shelley. He died of tuberculosis at the age of 25. It was only because he was, while tending his brother, he had also caught the symptoms of the disease. And at that time, when the romantic age was prevalent, at that time, we all know that tuberculosis was a deadly disease and there was no cure for tuberculosis. So he died very young at the age of 25. And there is one more thing which is said, that Keats was also suffering from the attacks that the critics made on him, because during his lifetime he was not reaching that acclaim, that fame that needed to be that he actually was hunting for, or thought he actually deserved. So that fame he was not getting while he was alive. So his poems were attacked by critics during his lifetime, and his reputation grew only after his death. By the end of 19th century, he became one of the most beloved poets of English era, or the Romantic era. And his style is of sensuous, and you can see the vivid imageries. When we'll read the poem, you will see the vivid imageries coming up, and the way you can just actually imagine what is going on, because you will feel all the senses coming to life. He will even give you the smell of the flowers, or the color of the flowers, even when you are not looking to those flowers. So that is the style, or that is the greatness, you can say, of Keats. And he has written a series of odes. Nightingale is one among them, and aimed to extract emotion through an emphasis on natural imagery. Obviously, all the romantics were natural poets and they were poets of nature. And here in this poetry, when he's talking about Nightingale, he's talking about the natural aspects of Nightingale, and not only Nightingale. He's along with Nightingale, he gives us a detailed or a vivid description of the garden in which he's sitting. So you can see all the images coming to life, all the natural images in the poem. So coming to the poetry, the structure of the poem, each stanza is of 10 lines and it is metrically variable. So there is no fixed meter, we can say. The first 7 and the last 2 lines of each stanza are written in iambic pentameter. So a little bit of metrical pattern we find, that is in the first 7 and the last 2 lines of each stanza. The 8th line of each stanza is written in trimeter. So you can see the variation. And each stanza is rhymed with the rhyme scheme A, B, A, B, C, D, E, C, D, E. So that is the structure of the poetry. Now coming to the poem, theme of the poem. Ode to Nightingale is a poem by John Keats, which was composed when he was sitting under a plum tree in a house in Hampstead. A nightingale had built its nest near the house in 1819, and this poem is one of the most acclaimed poems of Keats. Ode to Nightingale is a personal poem which describes Keats's journey into the state of negative capability. We know that Keats has derived this term negative capability, and this can be seen in this poetry. It is very well reflected through the poem. The poem is not very optimistic and on the contrary explores the theme of mortality, because already I've said various point you will see that Keats is somewhere or the other bringing out the theme of death, or somewhere or the other is also trying to reach to that position where he is lulled off to sleep, or where he leaves this world. Some kind of that implication can be seen. A numbness, he's talking about numbness and going numb, and such images you will find. So it is exploring the theme of mortality, and obviously we have talked about that it was composed after his brother's death. So that is reflecting in the poem. The nightingale is a mortal bird but achieves immortality through its song. The poem ends with an acceptance that pleasure cannot last and that death is an inevitable part of life. In the poetry, Keats imagines the loss of the physical world and sees himself as dead, as a sword over which the nightingale sings. The contrast between the immortal nightingale and the mortal man sitting in the garden is made all the more acute by an effort of the imagination. The poem's vivid description of nature and the surroundings in detail has a sensuous approach. It brings the garden and the nightingale to life, and one can visualize the description put forth by Keats. Now, the full poetry, line by line, we'll take it up. My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my senses. As though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains. 1 minute passed, and the words had sunk. It's not true envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thy happiness, that thou light winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of region green and shadows numberless, singest of summer in full-throated ease. Oh, for a draught of vintage that had been cooled a long age in the deep delved earth, tasting of flora and of the country green, dance and provincial song and the sunburned mirth. Oh, for a full beaker of the warm south, full to the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim, and purple stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. First 2 stanzas. Now you see, he starts with the feeling, my heart aches. So we can see the situation, we can see the emotional bent of mind what Keats is having at this juncture. he is full of pain. His heart is aching and he's feeling numb. A drowsiness is there, as if he is numb, he is drowsy, it is paining his sense. So all of his sense organs are not working properly actually, because he feels that he is some kind of lulled to sleep, or he is some kind of having no life in himself. When you are very much depressed or very sad, sometimes you will feel that you are feeling no energy. So something of that sort, that he is numb, he is full of pain, his senses are not working, and he's comparing this situation to the situation of a person who is under the addiction or who is under the restraint of some kind of drug, because he compares it to as if he's feeling, he's aching, he is full of drowsiness, as if he has drunk hemlock. What is hemlock? Hemlock is a kind of weed, a kind of drug. So once a person consumes some drug, what kind of state he or she will be in? The same state is being felt by Keats. Or emptied some dull opiate to the brains, or as if in his veins, drains means actually he's talking about his body, in his body someone has injected or poured, what is it? Opium. Some dull opium has been infused in his body. So what kind of feeling a person will have when he's drugged with opium or with hemlock? In both the cases, he will feel numb. The same situation is with Keats. He's feeling numb, although he's not drugged, but still because of his heart, which is full of sorrow, he's feeling the situation. 1 minute passed. Till now, he was fine. He was in this world. And just after 1 minute, he feels as if he's moving towards Lide. Lide words had sunk. He's sinking towards Lide. What is Lide? Lide is the river, the mythological river, which separates this world to the other world. So you can go to the other world only when you are dead. So again, Keats is comparing the situation to the juncture or to the point when he is feeling that he is going to die. Only after that, he will cross the river Lide and move to the world of the immortals or to the world of the dead. So to move to that world, to move to the other world, he has to cross this river. Anyone has to cross this river. That is the mythology. So he's feeling the same situation, as if he's on the verge of death, he's dying, and because of that, he feels that he is moving towards or sinking towards Lide. It's not through envy of the happy lot. No, he's not envious of Nightingale, because Nightingale is singing full-throatedly and Nightingale is singing the song of joy. It's not that Keats is envious of Nightingale, no. But being too happy in dying happiness. But actually, he's so happy by seeing Nightingale as a happy lot. He is enjoying it actually. Then he says to the Nightingale, thou art the light-winged dryad. Dryad is a nymph who lives on trees. So obviously, this is a small sort of fairy or a mythological creature who has got wings and is living on trees, is called a dryad. So he's comparing the Nightingale to something angelic, some angelic figure, some nymph who has got wings and lives on trees. So he's saying or referring to the Nightingale as a dryad of the trees. And Nightingale is singing somewhere in some melodious plot, and that plot is obviously wherever the Nightingale is singing is the garden. It is full of greenery, it is full of shadows, numberless, because the more amount of trees, the more amount of shadows will be there. So there are number of trees, number of shadows, and in summer the Nightingale is singing with its full throat. The full song of Nightingale is coming. Oh, for a draught of vintage that had been cooled. Now again he's coming to, till now he was talking about opium and hemlock. Now he's coming to some kind of wine or some kind of alcoholic drink. It is generally thought that the alcoholic drink, when preserved in earth, actually buried down in the earth, it gets, and the more amount of days it is kept there, even years, it is, and the vintage the wine is, the most tasty it becomes. So it is saying that it is a draught of vintage which has been kept, which has been cooled in the deep delve of the earth. It has been dug down and kept in the earth for long. Tasting of flora, because it is buried in the ground. So obviously the taste of the earth, the aroma of the earth, the aroma of the flowers and other senses are coming to the alcohol, coming to the wine. It is tasting of country green, the greenery, and it is tasting of flora. And obviously, if it is preserved in some countryside, the dance, the provincial song, the sunburn, mirth, everything has got into that wine. All the beauty of a provincial or a countryside has come to that wine. And tapped wine, which is a beaker full. It has been now taken out. It is full in a beaker, which is full of the true, of the warm south, blushful hippocrene. Hippocrene, again, a wine, a word which refers to some kind of alcoholic drink. So the beaker is full with that wine, which has been taken out from the earth. And the wine, when full in the beaker, its bubbles are coming to the brim, to the top of the container, and as if those bubbles are winking. And you see, it is a red wine, so the mouth of the beaker, he compares, is becoming purple stained. The purplish color is visible on the beaker's mouth, the stain of the wine. You see how beautifully, how you can imagine whatever Keats is saying, because the way he has described very minutely each and every detail, the winking of the bubbles of the wine, or the purple stained mouth of the container in which the wine is preserved, or how before the wine was preserved when it was beneath the earth. So you can see this is the sensuousness of Keats. And he says that I might drink it, that I might drink and leave the world unseen. So if you are under intoxication, if you have consumed alcohol, what will happen? You will be in a kind of drowsy state, or you will be in a kind of sleepy state. So that same sleepy state Keats is trying to have. So he wants to leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. He wants to fade away with the nightingale, to go to some place where nobody can find him, or go to some place where actually he cannot find himself also. He wants to. So to the next two stanzas. Fade far away, dissolve and quite forget what thou among the leaves hath never known. The weariness, the fever, and the fret, here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last grays, where youth grows pale and spectrate thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow and the leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep but lustrous eyes, or new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. Away, away, for I'll fly with thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his bards, but on the viewless wings of poesy. Though the dull brain perplexes and retards, already with thee, tender is the night, and happily the queen moon is on her throne, clustered around by all her starry face, but here there is no light, save from what heaven is with this breezes blown through verdurous glooms and winding mossy days. So you see, a similar theme can be seen in Shelley's Skylark also. When Shelley talks about the melodious song of the skylark and the sorrowful songs of human beings. In the same way, Keats here talks about the nightingale and its happy song, and he says that nightingale has never known weariness, never has known fever or fret or groaning of the men. Why? Because men are obviously anxious about their life, and they have certain difficulties, certain circumstances that they everyday face in their life, be it fever, because he's referring to fever here. You see, again, there is somewhere or the other in his mind the thing that tuberculosis is affecting them all. So they become old, they become gray-haired, they become weak, they become shaky. Everyone, even who is in power, who has got a spectre in his hand, obviously a king will have a spectre in his hand, that also becomes thin after some time. So nothing is nothing is permanent in this world. Everything is temporary. And for human beings, when they keep on thinking about it, they keep on thinking on the sorrows that they have, so their eyes become like leaden eyes made up of lead. In Hindi we can say patharai aankhein. So it is so full of sorrow, it becomes so full of sorrow. Beauty cannot keep her lustrous sparkle in the eyes of men. Why? Because men are always bothering about their future, they are bothering about their life, and they are facing the difficult circumstances that come in their life. So they become sorrowful, they keep on pining for tomorrow, keep on fretting for what will going to be happen in their future. So that must be avoided by men if you have to be happy like Nightingale. You have to realize the truth of life, that everything is temporary in this world, and if you are born you have to die. That is the permanent truth. So actually, Keats says that he wants to fly away with the nightingale. In the next stanza, he says, "So away, away, for I will fly with thee." And obviously, he will not fly till now. He was in the first two stanzas, he has been talking about hemlock, and he has been talking about opium, and he has been talking about wine. So, somewhere or the other, we feel that is Keats planning to become a drunkard? No. Here he defends himself and he says that no, I'll not fly away with thee. I will not go into the other world with thee by lulling myself off through some wine. No, I'll not be flying with thee on the Bacchus and his parts, charioted by Bacchus and his parts. Who is Bacchus? Bacchus is the god of wine, and he comes in a chariot which is driven by leopards. So he says that no, no leopards will be driving me, and I'll not come like Bacchus. Bacchus is also associated with Dionysus. Dionysus is another name for a god who is the god of wine, who is the god of merrymaking. So he says that no, I'm not going to come on Bacchus and his parts. I'm going to come on the viewless. I'm going to fly actually, because nightingale is a flying bird. So as nightingale will fly, in the same way Keats will fly, but the wings which Keats will have will be the wings of imagination. It will be the viewless wings. You cannot see the wings, but it will be the viewless wings of poesy. So he'll compose poetry, he'll actually take his imaginations to the next level, and he'll be composing poetry, and through the help of that poetry he will be flying away with the bird. Although the dull brain, the brain keeps on hampering him, it is perplexes, it is retard, but he also says that I am retarding with thee, I'm already with thee, and I'm becoming tender in the night. Just like till now Keats was talking, he was in the garden, and the time was maybe of evening, but now slowly it is becoming more duskier, and the queen moon is on her throne. So it has become night now, and there is stars all around, clustered around by the stars. But here, where Keats is sitting, there is no light there. Why? Because he has already told that he's in a garden which is full of shadows, which is full of trees. So maybe because of the trees, the light is not seeping in. Save what from heaven is with the breezes blown. Only little bit of light is coming. How is that light coming? When some breeze is blowing, when the leaves are parting, from those leaves, a little bit of light is seeping in. Only a little bit of light is coming in through the help of those breezes. Otherwise, it is all gloomy all around, through wondrous glooms and winding mossy ways. So the way is also full of mosses. So the garden, we can imagine, is overgrown with grasses, and one cannot find their way because it is very dark, and Keats is unable to see anything because it is very dark there. Only a little bit of light is coming when there a wind is blowing, and you can see the beauty in which Keats is describing. You can visualize what is happening, how the poet is sitting in the garden, how the light is coming, how the queen moon is in the sky, stars are all around. You can visualize everything. This is the beauty of Keats. And Keats says that he is unable to see anything because it is quite dark. He is unable to find out his way because it is dark and the path is overgrown with mosses and weeds. So the next stanza. I cannot see what flowers at my feet. Obviously, he cannot see the flowers because it is very dark, nor what soft incense hangs on the boughs, nor from the boughs, from the branches, whatever flowers are hanging, obviously. He's referring to those flowers as incenses. Why? Because they are giving very sweet smell. So that smell he can feel, but he cannot see what the flowers are, but he can guess them. But in embalmed darkness, guess each sweet wherewith the seasonable month endows the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white hawthorn, and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, the coming musk rose full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies and submarines. Earlier also he has referred that Nightingale is singing at the time of summer, and now he is unable to see the flowers, but he knows that the garden is overgrown with flowers, and he can feel the smell of those flowers, and with those smells he can differentiate each one with the other. So this is the full description in this stanza about all the flowers that are growing there, be it hawthorn, be it eglantine, be it violets, be it violets is referred to as May's eldest child, or be it musk rose. And there are flies, obviously, because it is summer, because it is the garden is overflown with flowers. So the summers are so the flies are also coming in the summer, haunting all around with their murmuring sound that the flies are creating. So this is the description of the garden, how the garden is looking at this present time. Darkling I listen, and for many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called in soft names many a mused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to seize upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain, to thy high requiem become a sword. So you see here, again the repetition of the word depth, again the clear cut mention of till now he was talking about lulling, he was talking about going to towards the other world to cross the Levy river, but now he clearly mentions this word death, and he says that this is not the first time. Many times before he has called for death, he has asked for death, he has begged for death, he has called soft names with love and with ease, so that death would come and take him away. But till now it has not been a reality, it has not become a reality. But now he seems that if death comes at this point, this juncture of time, it would be the best time to die, because it is at the time of midnight, when he is lulled to a kind of half drowsy state because of the beautiful music that the nightingale is singing, and he is feeling no pain at this time. So this is the most appropriate time for anyone to die, when the song of nightingale is being pouring all around, all abroad. The sound or the music of the nightingale is pouring. It is becoming like a feeling of an ecstasy, into some other world he imagines himself, and he says that this is the best time, still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain. And he says that maybe it may happen that I die just at this juncture, and you keep on continue your song, and I would not have ears to listen to that song, because I would be dead, obviously. So after death, there will be ears, but no hearing. And to thy high requiem become a sword. So I'll become like a sword. You will keep on singing, and I'll be a corpse, not responding to anything, not even being able to listen to your sweet song. So this is the most appropriate time for him to die, as Keats feels, because this is the time when he is lulled by the song of the skylark, by the song of the nightingale, and he will feel no pain if death comes now. Now, thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. So Keats talks about his death, but for Nightingale he says that no, you are not going to die, you are immortal. No hungry generations tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. Perhaps the self same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when sick for home. She stood in tears amid the alien corn. The same that oft times hath charmed magic casements opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. Forlorn, the very word is like an ringing bell to him, to toll me back from thee to my soul self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well, as she is famed to do deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu, their plaintive anthem faints. Past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now it's buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music? Do I wake or sleep? So, in these lines, Keats says that Nightingale is an immortal bird. It is not made or not born for death, because death comes in the hands of the mortals. Because the mortals actually keep on thinking about it, keep on pestering about or hampering the same feelings that they are unlucky, or there is some ill fate, or that they are going to face some problems in the future, or become too much melancholic with their ongoings of the present situation. But when compared to Nightingale, she and her song has been heard from generations to generations. She is not someone who dies today, because she's immortal. The song of the nightingale has been heard from emperors and clowns since ancient days. Until now, it is being heard. And he gives the example of a mythological character, that is Ruth. Ruth was a lady who was married off to a far off land, and she used to weep for her lost home, and used to weep for her maternal place. So here he gives the example of Ruth, that since time immemorial, since the time of Ruth, when Ruth used to be sad amidst the alien corn, amidst the alien place where she was married off, so she used to keep on crying till that time. Even Ruth used to be inspired by the song of Nightingale. And since that time, the song of Nightingale used to open up magic casements, charmed magic casements. So you can see that Keats wants to say that the song of Nightingale is something which is magical, something which is beyond this world. And it used to open far off lands, far away lands, opening to the foam of the perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn, long lost lands, or lands which are far off, which only one dreams of, the fairy lands. So the song of Nightingale can transport you from this world to the other world, the world of the fairies. And as soon as the word forlorn is mentioned, he says that he goes back, or actually comes back to his own self. He realizes that, okay, he has been also carried away by the song of the nightingale. And then suddenly it rings a bell, it tolls a bell in the mind of Keats, that no, this is the present situation, and he has been far off carried away with the song of nightingale. So he comes back from those fairy lands and realizes that his situation is a miserable one. And when he realizes his situation, at that time he gives a farewell, he gives a bye to Nightingale, saying, adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well. Because everything till now, Keats was talking about Nightingale and its beautiful song, and that the song of the Nightingale can transport you from one place to other. that is all imagination, that is all fancy. So fancy is there, it can give you temporary relaxation, but it is not something which is permanent. You cannot escape on the into the world of imagination and forget the reality. So he is not going to be cheated anymore, and she is famed to do it, the deceiving elf. So he is comparing the nightingale to an elf, a magical creature, a short dwarf like creature who has got magical properties. So he's saying that nightingale has also got those magical properties. She can also transform and transport someone to some magical lands with the help of her magical song. But he's not going to be cheated anymore. Bye bye. Again, he says repeatedly, he says bye, adieu to the bird. That the anthem is the song of the nightingale, is now fading away. Nightingale is now flying off to the faraway lands along with the imaginations that she has created. And now only a soft voice, and then a soft voice like he can now feel that nightingale is uh, actually getting out of scene now. She's flying away, and the voice is also becoming dimmer and dimmer. So the past the meadows and the streams and the hillside or the valleys, it keeps on going away. The voice is uh, deteriorating, it's flying away. Obviously, if then the nightingale is flying, the voice is slowing down, it is going away with the nightingale. Nightingale is visiting all over the world. She is crossing the valleys or streams or meadows and has left this particular garden where Keats is for now. And then suddenly Keats is realizing that, okay, what was this? Was it a dream or reality? Was it a vision or a waking dream? Because the music is now gone. And at last he gives or leaves it with a question mark. Do I wake or sleep? So he's unable to realize this fact that whether really he has heard the song of the nightingale or was he just dreaming. So whatever the case may be, this was a temporary escape for him from the present reality, from the present melancholic life or the present pathos which he was dealing with, and for temporarily only, but still the song of the nightingale gave him a lot of pleasure and gave him a lot of relaxation. So that is the stanzas we have completed. Now coming to a brief summarization of the poetry. The poet opens with a declaration of his own heartache. Because in the starting only we have seen that Keats is anxious and he feels numb as though he has been drugged. Addressing a nightingale, he hears singing somewhere in the garden and says that he feels a drowsy numbness is paining his senses. And he feels drowsiness. It is but a state of ecstasy. A nightingale's song brings happiness to him. In the second stanza, the speaker longs for the oblivion of alcohol, expressing his wish for wine, that also from some kind of country wine. He wants to get intoxicated and disappear into the dim forest where the nightingale is and from where the nightingale is singing. Third stanza, the poet explains his desire to fade away, saying he would like to forget the troubles, the weariness, the fever, and the fret of human life. With his consciousness that everything is mortal and nothing lasts, and beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes. Beauty is not going to be permanent. And you see, Keats has all the beautiful codes of beauty in his name. So be it beauty is truth, truth is beauty, or beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. And now we are coming across this, that beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes. In the fourth stanza, the speaker tells the nightingale to fly away and he will follow through poetry, which will give him the viewless wings, because he says that he will come on the viewless wings of poesy. He gives a detailed description of the garden, and in the fifth stanza, the speaker says that he cannot see the flowers in the glade, but can guess them. As it is dark, so he can guess the flowers by the smells. In the sixth stanza, the speaker listens in the dark to the nightingale, saying that he has often been half in love with the idea of dying and has called death with soft names in many rhymes. Surrounded by the nightingale's song, the speaker thinks that the idea of death seems richer than ever, and he longs to seize upon the midnight with no pain, while the nightingale pours its soul ecstatically forth. In the seventh stanza, the speaker tells the nightingale that it is an immortal bird, that it was not born for death. He says that the voice he hears singing has always been heard by ancient emperors and clowns and by homesick Ruth. He even says that the song has often charmed and opened magic windows to fairy lands. In the eighth stanza, the word forlorn tolls like a bell and restores the speaker back from his preoccupation with the nightingale, back for or back into himself. As the nightingale flies further away from him, he laments that his imagination has failed him, and he says that he can no longer recall whether the nightingale's music was a vision or a waking dream. Now that the music is gone, the speaker cannot recall whether he himself is awake or asleep. So the music of the nightingale was just like a escape for him for some time from this melancholic world. And then we move on to the quotes by Keats from various poetries. A thing of beauty is joy forever, or beauty is truth, truth is beauty, or from this poetry particular quote, that beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes. Beauty is not something which is permanent, but it always gives you joy. A thing of beauty is joy forever. That we have to not forget, because it also advocates this point that although the beauty will not remain always, but you can always remember that beauty and be happy. That is the idea of the romantics. When Wordsworth says that spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings and the emotions recollected in tranquility. So although the daffodils are gone, but when Wordsworth imagines those daffodils and pens down the thoughts in an aftermath, that is also, or that also gives the same joy. So that is the beauty of the romantics. And that is all about this poetry. I'm sure you all must have understood it. If yes, then please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.